Alrighty, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names of kicking candy ass. Live and Lily Color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. And we are here live tonight on a very special Friday edition with a very special guest. He is the one, the only, the legendary Neon Black Reviews. What's going on, my friend?
Not much, man. Ready to get in here and talk about these two films.
Yeah, man.
First
I'm
time watching
excited.
Bad Taste for me, and it's been a while since I've seen Brain Dead, so it was fun to revisit that one too. So yeah, I'm ready to talk about them.
Yeah, man. Stoked to have you on the show. I'll be sure to leave a link to your channel down below in the video description. Neon Black Reviews, he does awesome stuff. He's been reviewing the Masters of Horror series. He's been doing individual reviews. He just did actually a really cool, it was like an hour-long video talking about his favorite all-time horror film, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So his channel has excellent content, really, really awesome stuff. I'll be sure after this video goes live, I'll put your link to your channel in the video description here.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, totally, man. Go sub up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff to Mr. Neon Black Reviews' channel. But as graveyard tradition or, orientation, if you will, I always love to ask my guests the initial question, if you will. How did you get into horror? How did you fall in love with it? And who are some of the specific icons that stand out that make you a fan today?
Oh, let's see. Well, first of all, I am pretty old. I'll turn 50 this year. So I grew up watching horror movies in the 80s as a teenager. But I guess I was introduced to it a little earlier than that. One of the local channels where I grew up after the nightly news in that time slot between the news and Johnny Carson, they would show reruns of Twilight Zone and Night Gallery. So I would watch those because they're pretty, horror light. They're older, but I guess that was probably my first introduction to it. The first actual horror film that I can remember seeing was Jaws. Didn't see it in the theater because I would have been about 6 years old, but that's one of the first ones that I watched. And then I guess my first real horror movie, because Jaws is still kind of horror light, even though it's an excellent film. My dad let me sit up late one night and watch The Howling on HBO with him.
Awesome.
I made it to the transformation scene and I was like, fuck it, I have got to get out of here. I was probably 11 years old. So yeah, I went to bed and had nightmares for about 3 years after that. So anyway, but yeah, just growing up as a teenager, VHS tapes from the video store. Grew up on the Halloweens, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraiser. So those are my favorite films. I like slasher films probably more than anything else. But as far as being really into horror and taking it seriously, I don't think that started until maybe I was in my 30s. That's about the time I started doing reviews. I started out doing blogs on the internet, WordPress and things like that. So that's when I started watching them and actually, taking them apart, thinking about what was going on and comparing them to each other and things like that. So I probably really didn't get to be a serious horror fan until, like I said, late 20s, early 30s. So that's pretty much it for me. But now, I watch 3 or 4 a week or as many as I can and that I have time for. So.
That's awesome, man. I have to ask though, what was the breaking point with you, or the turning point, I should say, where as you went from a casual fan as opposed to, bam, now I want to really look into these films? Because that's actually something that I've dealt with myself. Like as a kid, I liked and appreciated horror, and I could watch, of course, like you said, the slasher films and monster movies and psychological, and I got into almost all of it. But there was a point just a few years ago where I was like, man, I love this. I just had that turning point in my life where I was just like, this isn't just something I'm casually into. Like I want to know the ins and outs and all these other things. And I don't know exactly what it was for me personally, but I think that day it really changed my life for the better, because this has become one of my favorite things to do is on here and talk about horror, every week. And no matter what the subject be, it's just always fun to research and look into it. And while I can enjoy it being a fan, I think it's just so interesting. But where was that turning point for you, and why do you think that was?
I think what it was is, I started watching more horror when I got into my 20s. I guess, like once I got a job and, came home every day and didn't go out as much as I used to. So I started just watching more movies. But, my friends and everything, they knew that I watched mostly horror movies. So they would always ask me, hey, have you seen this one? Or what do you think about this one? Should I, rent this one? And, after a while, one of them was like, you should actually start doing reviews because you're actually good at talking about this stuff. And that got me thinking. I was like, well, if I'm going to talk about them, I actually need to pay more attention than what I do. I think that was really just the turning point, was when I started to actually do the reviews. And, when I sat down and watched a film, I was watching it, I guess, with a more observant eye, other than just sitting back and, enjoying the film. I'm actually thinking about what's going on. And of course, what you do a lot of times, or at least what I do a lot of times, the first time I ever watch a film now, is I try to figure out how it's going to end before it ends, just to see if I can do it. And I'm probably about 25% now, which is a lot better than 0. So
Totally, 1 out of 4 ain't bad, brother.
no, it's not.
I wondered, because I know that you said in your Texas Chainsaw Massacre video that it was your favorite horror film of all time and the one that meant the most to you. But do you have an all-time favorite horror filmmaker?
I have a few. Romero is one of them.
Me too.
Obviously, Tobe Hooper, although Texas Chainsaw Massacre is by far the best film he ever did.
Easily,
He's
yeah.
still got a few of them that are good, but I mean, he never got back to that level. But I mean, he's always going to have a place in my heart because he directed my favorite film of all time, in Argento. I love Dario Argento and Fulci and Bava, for that matter. I love their films. I'm just now getting into going back and watching a lot of their older catalog films. So some of those will be coming out on the channel. I'll be doing reviews for those. But yeah, I think the more that I've gotten into horror, the more I have strayed away from American filmmakers and gone to foreign filmmakers.
I've done the same thing. Yeah, I love experimenting and dabbling in different filmmakers from all different places in the world. Baba, personally, like when I discovered Baba, I was like, wow, like this is incredible. I watched Black Sunday, Blood and Black Lace, all these just incredible films. I think Mario Baba is just an all-time great filmmaker. Hey, Navers and Nahizi, what's going on, everybody? He said, hey, Neon Black Reviews, I love your Masters of Horror retrospective series.
Appreciate that, Aiden.
Yeah, Romero and Argento are legends, dude. Probably my top 2 horror filmmakers of all time. Wes Craven would be somewhere up there too, but yeah, no, those 3, and I'm just a diehard fan of all those guys. But with that said, one last question for you. This one,
Okay.
I think I talked about it on a stream 2 or so years ago, but I figured this would be really fun to ask you. Tough question, so no pressure. But if you could go out to dinner with 2 living or deceased horror celebrities, who would you pick? Where would you go? And what would you eat, good brother?
Oh man,
That's a tough one. I know it's loaded.
I think I would like to go to dinner with Tom Savini and pick his
Cool.
brain on how he did all of the stuff that he was able to do. I think that would be an interesting question. And I think I would probably have to eat the rarest steak that the restaurant could serve me. As far as another one, oh man, let me think. Man, there's just so many to choose from.
I know
Really.
it's hard, especially that you throw the deceased in there, that they can be someone who has passed on. That when I first was posed the question, I was like, Jesus, that's so much harder because there's so many people that are gone that I would have loved to have gone out to eat with. Like Fulci's one of them for sure. I had the pleasure to meet George Romero, and he was
Oh
absolute
wow.
sweetheart. Yeah. I got on Facebook. I have pictures with him. He was the nicest guy in the world. Actually signed my Dawn of the Dead Blu-ray. Just the sweetest guy. But yeah, there's so many. Craven, of course, Angus Scrimm. I would love to have had a dinner with Angus Scrimm, the tall man. Imagine me and the tall man at White Castle like that. That would be an excellent, like, little, I don't know, mockumentary, if you will. Whoever wants to film that, please come through. We'll give you a burger.
Yeah. Oh man. Let me think on the second one. I'll get back to you.
Sure, sure, absolutely. It's a
Trying to
loaded
narrow it
question,
down.
so I know.
Yeah, but Savini would definitely be one of them because I mean, because I'm a gore hound and I'm a huge fan of practical effects, and he's the master. I mean, the absolute master. There's very few that can rival some of the stuff he's done. I mean, Nicotero is good, but I still think Savini beats him on their best day. So
Definitely. And Tom Savini is responsible for some of my favorite movies ever. My favorite movie ever, Dawn of the Dead. I mean, he is almost, it feels like a one-man show. That entire movie is like him
oh
just
yeah,
running around doing effects. And in between all this great direction and social commentary on consumerism and wonderful acting from the main cast. But Tom Savini's doing a lot of the stunts, of course, all the gore effects. And then, of course, you move on to Friday the 13th, which is the movie that made him, cemented him. The Burning. I mean, so many excellent efforts in his career. I just absolutely adore Tom Savini. I think he's responsible for so many. And then, of course, what I would consider the best special makeup effects in any horror movie would be Day of the Dead.
oh yeah.
I mean, when I watch a movie for gore, and I love the whole story and acting and stuff. Like Joe Pilato's wonderful, may he rest in peace. But Day of the Dead, man, that to me is the pinnacle of special effects makeup. It's just unbelievable how good the gore looks, and the scene where they're stretching that guy, like they're pulling his head off, and they
Uh-huh.
put the higher pitch scream, if you will. That's
Mm-hmm.
to this day, I'm like, wow, like that's absolutely goddamn crazy, but I love every
Yeah.
minute of it.
It's the
It's great.
attention to detail, man. His vocal cords are coming out, so his voice is going to change, right?
Exactly,
Most
exactly.
people
So
don't think about shit like that, but apparently he did.
yeah, Savini's the man. I don't know. Have you ever checked out they had a show. It was really briefly on, but he like was teaching a class in New York City, and like it was a competition. Whoever made the best monster effect work, like every week there was a challenge, and then Savini at the end would give one kid like 25 grand and a shot at to work on a movie. I don't know if you ever saw that show, but it was
No, I don't
really
think I did.
cool. I highly recommend it. I can't remember the name of it, but if I find it, I'll send you a link
Yeah,
because
I'm
it's
sure it's in his filmography or whatever. It would be listed in that on
yeah.
IMDb. I'll look that up and see if I can track it down somewhere.
Yeah, it was a fun little show. It was interesting to kind of peek into his mind, even though he's been really cool with, going to conventions and participating in horror documentaries and all that stuff. So I don't know. Long live Savini. I think that's an excellent, and I like that you picked the medium rare bloody steak. that's that's all you can eat with the master of blood
That's
work,
right,
right?
man. Absolutely. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something kind of obscure since it's kind of a really tough question. Actually, I think I would. I'd like to sit down and have dinner with Ingrid Pitt.
Ooh, very interesting. Where are you going?
Uh,
What are you eating? And why?
Whatever she wants, whatever she wants is fine with me. Because first of all, she's an extremely beautiful woman. And the reason why I would pick her is now for anybody that doesn't know who she is, she starred in a lot of the old Hammer films, like is it Countess Dracula, is it Daughters of Darkness, several films like that. But those films, almost as far as I know, every time she was overdubbed because her accent was so thick you couldn't understand what she actually said. So I'd like to go just to hear what her actual voice sounded like.
That's an interesting, yeah, man. Good looking woman. Got to hear what that accent is. I don't know. Where are you going to eat, though? That's important, too. You got to set
Yeah,
the scene.
probably Italian food. So
Oh, very nice. Maybe a little pasta.
a little pasta, a little wine, see what
Sounds like a
happens.
nice evening. Talking about Hammer Horror, I think that would be a lovely. We got the camera crew in there on that one as well, man. That sounds like a fun night. A little calamari, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? It's only the luxurious. If there's only two that you could do, I mean, you got to live it up during that. I love Savini's Night of the Living Dead remake. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
honestly, I'm a big fan of that too. I think it's a shame that he really didn't direct too many feature length films. As a matter of fact, that might have been the only one. Um, Like,
Yeah, as far as I know.
it,
Um,
it's crazy, isn't it?
but it was
Like,
a great remake.
it was. It was one of those remakes that, like, while I love the original film more, I think it's one of those remakes that it really turned all of the kind of problems that the original movie does have and completely changed them around. Like, Barbara's definitely not annoying. She's more heroic. I loved what they did with Tom Towles and Tony Todd. I love how they portrayed Cooper and Ben. I thought they worked well together. A little twist at the end. I don't know if it almost in a lot of ways feels like, Romero directed it, even though I believe he wrote the screenplay and I think he was there. I think he produced it and everything. It had his blessing, but
Yeah,
it
I'm
does
pretty
feel
sure he
very
was pretty
Romero.
pretty heavily involved in it. So had Sid Haig in it too, didn't it?
Did have Sid Haig. I know it had Bill Moseley. I didn't know Sid Haig. Was Sid Haig in the Night
Maybe I'm
Living Dead?
thinking of something else. It's been forever since I've seen it. But I
I
was
know
thinking,
Bill Moseley plays Johnny, the brother, in the beginning, and he falls on his head and stuff. Bill Moseley's briefly in it. I'm not positive. Sid Haig might have been in it. I do love Sid Haig. Oh, AJ Zitro's in the house. The PJ Pants playa. Dude, I'm always rocking my PJs, my Mountain Dew PJs. I'm in my green attire tonight, rocking the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle and Mountain Dew outfit, brother. Only the best on a Friday night here on the graveyard. Was he in it, though? Did you look it up?
yeah, he's not listed in the main cast, so I must be thinking of something else.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm not sure. Sid Haig was in like almost 200 movies.
Yeah, I was fixing to say it's like he almost had to be in it by default. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Bill Moseley was definitely in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Bill Moseley's in the opening scene. Yeah, it's weird. It's a really well done movie, really good cast. That's a remake that's really I have a lot of respect for. I think that Tom Savini did a wonderful job, and it's a shame he never really went on to direct feature length stuff after that. Like, I know he did some of my favorite Tales from the Dark Side episodes. He just recently did an episode for Shudder's Creep Show, which I thought he did a wonderful job with it as always. I wish he had gotten more jobs with stuff like that. Don't know really what happened with him after that 1990 Night of the Living Dead remake. He didn't really do that much,
yeah,
which is a shame. But he is the absolute master. I agree with you, man.
yeah. Aiden said there in the comments, Sid Haig was in another remake. So I got part of it right. Just a different one.
Oh, that's right. He was in the 3D one. That's right.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, okay.
Night of the
Yeah.
Living Dead 3D. He has the break on the car. Holy shit. Yeah, there's like a bunch of remakes of Night of the Living Dead. That's why when you say 90, I can actually pinpoint which one that is. The '06 one. Holy shit. No, I don't remember that at all. I remember it being bad. I remember that. Children of Living Dead 2, which Savini was in. I think he acted in. Holy shit. That's another really bad one, but it
Hmm.
is what it is. But yeah, I guess we can get right into the main topic at hand. One of my all-time favorite filmmakers, and this is really interesting because of who he has become now, with these big budget Lord of the Rings movie, Hobbit movies, King Kong movies, if you will. It all started in 1987, dude. It all started in 1987 with a little movie called Bad Taste. This is a really super duper old DVD. You can actually see it's sun faded. I don't know how, but it is. I don't know how well y'all could see, but this is from 1999. It actually says from Substance DVD, which I've never fucking heard of. It looks like shit, I'll be honest, but man, I do love this movie, man. Walk me through, Mr. Neon Black Reviews. Walk me through your thoughts on this one, your first viewing experience with this one.
All right, so I did read the description of it before I went in. So the story is basically aliens are on the planet and they're looking to harvest human beings for an intergalactic fast food restaurant.
Yes.
But they're not here in full force. It's kind of like a test drive. They're just going to take over a small town and convert everybody into alien fast food and take them back up in the mothership. And yeah, our cast of heroes is there to stop them. So that's how the film starts out. And like I said, this was my very first time ever watching this film, but it was so good I watched it twice in 3 days. So I don't usually do that, but yeah, I mean it's a B movie. If you don't like B movies, you're probably not going to like this one. But as you and I were talking earlier, this film has got just so much heart that you can't not like it. I mean, everything that, especially the second time through, I was noticing things that I didn't see the first time or didn't quite catch the first time. And there's just so many little things that are done in this film that I think sets it apart from the difference between a good B movie and a bad B movie is just all throughout this film. And you can tell that, from the opening scene, that Peter Jackson knew what he was doing. And that's what I really like about it, is just all the little things that go into making this movie what it is. I mean, it's just a fun film. Obviously, don't take it too seriously, because it's not taking itself seriously at all. It is a comedy, a horror comedy. So yeah, I mean, just in a nutshell, it is a fantastic B movie horror comedy, and
Yeah,
that's
I
what I think.
completely agree. I think, and that's the thing when you were saying that these movies don't take themselves too seriously. Bad Taste, number one, and then Dead Alive, number two. It's funny; these are both considered horror movies, and they definitely are. But I would say that they're really not going for scare or shock value. That's not really what Peter Jackson's about at all in these movies. In fact, I think that's why they work, and that's why there's a charm there, is because it's so tongue in cheek. And Bad Taste, man. I remember the first time I saw this just being like absolutely flabbergasted. Like, what in the hell am I watching? How is this the same guy that went on to do Academy Award nominated movies? And it all started here with this little fun B movie gem. And I don't know, man. There's just so many things about this movie that I like. And of course, I know we both did our research and we were talking a little bit on the pre show about some of the behind the scenes stories about this. Absolutely just blow me away. The guy, I want to make sure I get his name right. Pete O'Hearn. Pete O'Hearn is one of the first like characters you see in the movie, and he shows up. He has a little razor stubble, right? This movie had actually started filming in early 1983, and it wasn't completed till 87. What they did was they shot it on Sundays every weekend. They would shoot it on a Sunday, and that's pretty much the only day during the week they could film. Peter Jackson said, "Well, I hope you like that little razor stubble on your face, because for the next 4 years, that every Sunday you have to show up with that same kind of razor stubble to, ensure that we have continuity." And I don't know. There's certain stories like that that I just adore. And then another one, which I thought was great, was Craig Smith. He's the guy with the glasses in this film. He initially was going to be the lead. He was initially going to be the lead of the film, and the film's going to revolve around him and stuff like that. And basically, he had gotten married about a year into filming, and his wife was this uber religious nut, and she was like, "Listen, you ain't doing this shit. I don't want you in this splatter film. I'm not cool with this." So they had to take him out, and Peter Jackson, they stopped filming for 4 months. What the hell are we going to do? Then they got divorced, and all of a sudden, come on back, buddy, Craig Smith, come back in. We'll edit you back in, and somehow they find a way to make it feel like he was in the film from beginning, middle to end. And like, I just love movie magic like that, and I think that Peter Jackson showed that he had a lot of creativity, because there's fantastic gore and special effects scenes in this. There's a scene where he actually fights himself. He plays the
Mhm.
zombie chasing, or the alien chasing himself, and battle, and they edit it all together in such a way that you would never know it's the same guy fighting
Mhm.
himself. Just absolutely wild. And I'm just a huge fan of the gore in this movie. What do you think of the gore in this movie?
It's not on par with Brain Dead, but yeah, I mean, for what it is, and you consider the fact that they were not taking this seriously. I think it's awesome because
Yeah,
I've said in my reviews 1,000 times I'm a huge fan of practical effects, and there is no CG in this movie at all.
zero.
And just what they did was just fantastic, and it's that slapstick kind of humor. So I mean, they don't go all Three Stooges with it, but I mean, they do rein it in so that you can, you know, enjoy it without it being a complete, travesty. But I mean, it's just the way that they were able to create these special effects was really just amazing, to be honest with you, because I mean, they spent like $30 on this whole movie. So
Yeah. It's incredible when you know that none of the actors were paid, and he actually had to, I think the New Zealand Film Foundation or whatever, they actually had to help him finish the movie. They loaned him some money, I believe like 300 something dollars. I'm not even kidding you. That was the figure they loaned him just to finish this and make a miniature of the house, which looks incredible. I think you make a good point too, where this movie really does have a fine line of its humor, whereas a lot of these movies can feel very over the top, like movies like, I don't know if you ever seen Feeders, like movies like that, where I think the humor just almost ruins it.
Hmm.
This, I find it really genuinely funny. Like there's a scene where the lead, like sort of alien guy, what Lord Crumb, he's credited as Doug Wren, who is the actor. He gives his whole speech about how he wants to recruit all these humans and stuff to be food, and he goes, I can't wait to get off this shitty planet. Like, I don't know, just the way he said it was fucking hilarious. And they have this one guy, they bring him from the back, and they have him, he like throws up all this green goo into this bowl, and they have this
Yeah,
one guy who's undercover in there, and he has to pretend to like it, and then he actually does
it
end up
does.
liking it.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah,
oh, it's really good. They
yeah.
pull it
And
away
and
from
the
him.
one that's puking into the bowl, that's Peter Jackson.
Yep, incredible. The
But
director.
but I did read in the trivia that the scene where he's actually doing it, they used a dummy so that they could get all the stuff to come out of his mouth the way, because they had to film it in like one take. So he couldn't hold enough of the stuff in his mouth for what he was going to put into the bowl, so they had to use a dummy. But yeah, the guy, taking that sip out of it, and then like they have to pull it away from him because he liked it so much.
Yeah, at first he's like, "Oh shit, I don't want this." He keeps stepping back, and then he's like, "Ah, fuck it," and he enjoyed it. I thought that was right. I thought the aliens design themselves. Well, I'll be honest, that this is the design. I like the design. I really do, and because I watched this DVD, you really can't tell that it, like, I'm sure there are better HD versions where you could tell it looks maybe not the best, but I think honestly the latex looks decent, and I think it's funny they have like their ass cheeks are like popping out of the suit pants that they're wearing, like running around with like AKs, and I was just
Yeah.
bawling laughing.
And that's actually part of the humor in it too, because I mean, obviously the movie itself, it's a jab at consumerism. People eating fast food, getting huge, and I think it's Lord Crumb says somewhere, it's amazing how many humans you can get into just a few cardboard boxes if you cut off all the fat. And then because for the most part of this movie, they're just people that you don't get to see the aliens come out until the end. And then you see them, and they're bigger than we are. They got these big, huge, fat stomachs, these big asses. It's just the irony there. I thought that was hilarious, and I'm sure that was intentional.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and while it was really intelligent to do that, it was also very funny. Like like every time I watch that, I always crack up laughing. There's this one guy, he has a rocket launcher, and he's, taking all these cars and zombies and stuff, or aliens, and he shoots through to try to kill Lord Crumb. They both duck, Peter Jackson and Lord Crumb, they duck, the rocket goes out the other window and hits a sheep. And it's like a stock footage sheep, and then boom, and oh my god, every single time without fail, that just absolutely just makes me crack up laughing. Like, holy shit, like this
Yeah.
poor innocent sheep in yards away, just boom,
Yeah,
exploding.
and when I guess it's the money collector guy, they've got him in the house, and he's in that tub, and they're marinating him because they're going to eat him later.
Yeah.
And one of them says that he's like soaking in 11 herbs and spices, which is a KFC reference.
Yeah.
Because that's the secret recipe for Kentucky Fried Chicken is 11 herbs and spices.
Finger looking good, brother. I actually had
Yeah.
KFC this week. That's funny. That's funny enough. I don't know. I'm a big fan of KFC. It's the bomb. But yeah, no, and I like the scene where they're in the kitchen preparing to send the guy out, and they accidentally take this guy's head off. Like they're just like, shut him up, rip him off. His whole spine is tingling. All this gore's all over the floor. But one guy's trying to mop it up, and they're like, get rid of it. Guy punts this fucking alien head like all the way out the window. Just absolutely fucking fun. This is one of those films that just, it knows what it is. It has a lot of fun. It's very rarely boring. I don't know. Did you find this movie slow at any juncture?
No, and part of it too. One of the things that I was going to mention, the thing that kind of got my attention with this one right from the get go. So the opening scene is Barry, and he's just walking along, and my first thought was it was a zombie behind him too, because the aliens are in disguise as humans, and So they're just walking along, and the zombie is, or the alien is, catching up to him. If this had been any other film, I mean, this would have been shot in several ways. You probably would have got a shot from the front so you could see the guy behind him coming up, maybe from the side, so that you could see the two walking together. But Jackson doesn't do that. You see Barry walk past the camera, and then the whole camera moves backwards, and then the alien comes into view with him. So it's this whole steady cam thing that he's doing. Reminded me a lot of Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead, the way that Raimi had that camera just flying around. Yeah. And that's done all throughout this film. So, I mean, it's never boring, even when what you're watching would probably be boring in any other film. Just the way that they're filming it, you're flying around, the camera just turns and swivels as it goes by. So, I mean, it almost feels like you're riding along with it while you're watching it. So, I mean, that's what kept the film from becoming boring in some of the. I mean, I don't really think it had any slow moments, but I mean, it's just the way that it was filmed just kind of keeps your attention because you're always seeing something. There's always something there. And then there's another scene. I think it's the money collector guy. All he's doing is just walking, and you get a shot of him from the front, and then you see his feet, and then you see him from the side, and then it's a close up of his eyes, and all the guy's doing is just walking. But I mean, you get to see it from like 18 different cuts, and it's not so fast that it makes you dizzy or anything like that. But you're just always, there's something new to look at every 15 to 20 seconds in this film, no matter what's going on. So
yeah. I think that's where Peter Jackson really shines as a great filmmaker too, because you could even see from his first movie, people always mention his bigger movies, his more, of course, well-known movies, but this guy always had talent, and you really can see that when you watch this movie, even though as low budget as it is. I think he realized that, hey, man, I don't have money, but what I do have, I got friends, I got passion, and I have the number one, I think, most important thing that makes a great horror B movie is creativity. Yes. We understand that you don't have all of these things at your luxury. You're not going to have the best actors. You're not going to have the best effects guy. You didn't really even have a crew with this movie. From what mostly I've read, the actors were the crew. Yes. They didn't have no gaffer, giffer, whatever. They didn't have any of that.
Yeah, they all played aliens at the end. I mean, everybody was working together. The steady cam that he used was his own contraption. He built a counterweight for the camera. The whole contraption cost $15. $15.
Incredible?
And this film, from that stick, I mean, it's just as good as John Carpenter's Halloween. I mean, it's
and it's incredible because you consider that one had all of the things at his fingertips and the other didn't, but you have to make that work somehow. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about low budget horror filmmaking. When it's done right, you accentuate the positives and you hide the negatives. We understand we don't have all the great things in the world, but we do have a lot of gore. We do have the most batshit crazy of plots. We do have all these great, wonderful, different, unique camera angles that keeps you glued to the screen. And I don't think that that's lost on me personally. I love shit like that. I'm glad that you love shit like that too. I know a lot of people could watch this and just go, oh, that's cheap. You have bad taste for liking bad taste. But at the end of the day, I think this is just such a marvelous first film. And you mentioned Sam Raimi. It's funny. I see Sam Raimi in this, and I especially see Sam Raimi in this. Yes. When we talk about this, I definitely am going to bring up Sam Raimi. But I don't know, man. There's something about this movie that I just adore. And the finale, the finale of Peter Jackson coming in, Lord Crumb, chainsaws right through him, and I'm coming to get you, Bostons. And you see the miniature house floating in space, and then bam, hit the Bad Taste song done by, I think, Mike Minette is his name. Yeah, Mike Minette. He actually had a band at the time, and he said, hey, we'll do a ending closing theme called Bad Taste for your movie. And I got to be honest, I think the song kicks ass. And I think it's the perfect song to play as the credits roll and the characters literally drive off into the sunset.
Yeah, I think it's like one of the only songs that's actually in the film too. The rest of it is all some. And this is another thing. I'm really hard of hearing, so I always watch everything with subtitles. And the subtitles for this one, I'm trying to think exactly how they described it, but they described all of the background music in the subtitles. and
Really?
it would say something like "playful but menacing synthesizer," and I was like, "What the fuck does that even mean?" Playful but menacing synthesizer, and I was just. But anyway, that's just one of the things. If you watch subtitles, that you'll find out about movies. But you're talking about the masks and how they had to do everything themselves. He baked those in his mom's oven. That's how he made them.
That's absolutely incredible, and
Had
they
to turn
honestly
them
look
backwards
good.
so that they would fit. They had to turn them inside out so they would fit in the oven. So yeah, it was crazy.
That's
But yeah, they made. I mean, everything was just stuff that had all the machine guns and everything are just plastic and pipe that he put together, and they look real.
They do, and they added in all this, like flash effects and stuff, and they would make the sounds. Like there's a point where Peter Jackson's he's like, and like you're just like laughing because that's probably how it really was, and then they add all that stuff in
That was
post.
funny. That's again, like we were saying, it's slapstick style comedy, but it doesn't go, like I said, full Three Stooges. So that one where he points the machine gun at him and it's out of bullets, so he just goes da, 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 and zombies sitting there until he realizes he's not being shot,
Yeah, he had to think, just
and then
like
he reloads. Yeah, and it gives him time to reload, and then while he's shooting him, he's still going da, 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 da.
it's
It's just
amazing.
so hilarious, man.
I know that scene on the cliff too, where and I thought they did a really good tension. Like you're like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen? And I remember when I first saw it being kind of like shocked that Peter Jackson falls, cracks his head open, and pulls out a piece of his brain. He's like, all right, puts it back in, tapes it over. Like amazing. I was
And
like,
then later in the movie, he sees some of the alien brain laying on the ground, so he picks it up and puts it in his head.
why not?
Like it's going to make him smarter.
Yeah, nothing's knocked loose. So you just put it in, tape it up. That's like my dad's mentality. Fuck it, put it back
Yeah.
in, tape it up.
He's got his belt tied around his head to keep his skull from falling off. I mean, it's hilarious. And the first time, like I said, Peter Jackson plays two different roles in the movie. He plays
Derek.
Derek. Why couldn't I think
Derek's don't run.
Yes, Derek's don't run. The first time I saw Derek, I thought it was Rick Moranis.
Oh my God, Rick Moranis, he's like low key my dad. I look just like him if I put the Darth helmet on.
I mean, when I first I was like, no, surely that's not. I mean, but especially, I'm thinking of him in Ghostbusters, obviously. But after he gets possessed, just that crazy look that he's got. I mean, that's Peter Jackson's face. I mean, if you put them side by side, you'd be like, no, they don't look like each other at all. But the first time I saw it, I was like, is that Rick Moranis?
That would have been great. Can you imagine Rick Moranis somehow interspliced in this movie? They would have had to pay him though. That's the only problem.
Yeah. Or if they had Joe Pesci in it.
Oh my God, can you imagine Joe Pesci as Lord Crumb? We're getting you off this shitty fucking planet. And then that would be amazing, man. Joe Pesci is Lord Crumb, man. Sometimes I think about like just recasting, weird recastings that would never happen. That's a genius one. Joe Pesci is Lord Crumb. I would tell me where to sign. I'll do it. CGI him in somehow.
Yeah. Whatever you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You were mentioning too about the humor, and that's interesting. It's something I actually would like to touch on here personally. And this is I may just be alone in this, but personally, I've always found that tone in horror is something that's a very fine line with me. And if you go too far, you could really turn me the wrong way. A perfect example of that, and I don't know how you feel about these films. The first Hatchet film, like I remember all the hype, and this is the most legendary slasher film in however many years. And I remember that was literally the tagline. Like it's not a
reinventing American horror was what they said that they were doing.
Yeah. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, I understand that you used good gore, and I appreciate the good gore. I thought Kane Hodder did a wonderful job, but at the end of the day, I felt it was too comical, and I really didn't find the comedy funny. Where do you think it is that this movie gets it right? Whereas, in my opinion, I don't know how you feel about the Hatchet movies, but where other movies get it wrong, like where do you think that line is crossed, and how do you think that line is crossed?
Well, with something like Hatchet, the Hatchet films, I still haven't seen the third one. I've seen the first two. I own all three of them on Blu-ray because I used to buy Blu-rays by the dozen. So just because I own it on Bluray doesn't mean I like it. Um, yeah, just a funny fact about me. But the first two are average at best, to be honest with you. I mean, they really are. The best thing about those movies is Tony Todd.
Especially the second one. Yeah, Tony Todd's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, and yeah, he just plays that over the top character so well. But anyway, as far as like the humor in it, the humor that's in Hatchet is very hit and miss for me. So like with some of the kills, I think it's hilarious, but you know, at the same time, I don't think it needed. If they were really truly trying to reinvent American horror, they should have left the comedy out of it almost completely. It should have been a serious horror film because that's what American horror is. The horror comedy is a very small subgenre of American horror. This was supposed to be a type of slasher film. The Friday the 13th movies are not intentionally funny. They are at the beginning with some of the dialogue with the characters, but once Jason Voorhees starts killing people, they're serious horror films.
Yes,
they have build up for the kills. I mean, there is a suspense there that Hatchet just does not have. Victor Crowley is a terrible villain, in my opinion. He's got a great backstory, but he just looks ridiculous. And
yeah, I don't like the design.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to be this big hulking figure, I mean, you've got to make him look something more than just like a caricature. I mean, he looks like something you would see drawn at the state fair, except for it's on the big screen. I mean, it'd be on one of those posters for seeing the three-legged man or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what they'd have on one of those tents for you to go in and see this big, huge, deformed guy. So, I mean, there's definitely things that I appreciate about the Hatchet films, Danielle Harris being one of them.
Oh, me too.
But yeah, I mean, they're just average at best, and what keeps them from being really good is the fact that they didn't take it serious enough, in my opinion. But you take it to this film where they were not trying to make a horror film. They were trying to make a comedy that had horror components in it. And like I said, they just didn't go too far. They're not just so stupid that it's silly. It's just stupid enough that you can have fun with it, knowing that that's what you're getting into from the start. I mean, you can tell from the very beginning that this is not going to be a serious horror film.
Exactly.
So you put yourself in that state of mind, but it never goes off the deep end. Everything is, it's reined in enough that it just doesn't become a circus.
I completely agree. I think that's the thing. Like, I think where a lot of these type of movies and then movies that, of all before and after this, I think sometimes can lose me where I'm just like, dang, like, why did you not, like, you had something here, like, go for it. And then with a movie like this, I think they really do just go for that tone that they start off with. And I think they nail it, man. I don't know. I think the world of Bad Taste. I really do. I think every time I watch it, like you said, it does get better with each viewing. And I after reading all the stuff I did in prep for the show, I appreciate this movie so much goddamn more than I ever could have before I knew all the stuff I know now. So
yeah.
I don't know. I adore this movie. If I had to give it a rating, it's a tough one to give a rating, but man, I'm going to come in a solid 7.5 out of 10. I love me some Bad Taste.
Yeah, I'd probably rate it as high as an 8 for what it is. A horror comedy B movie. Well, actually, if you want to rate it as far as B movies goes, it's probably a 9 because it's one of the better ones out there. But just like, comparing it to like all horror, where, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an 11. Yeah, this would probably be a 7.5, 8 for me because these are films that I like. And I'm not ashamed to say that I like Bad Taste. It's not for everybody, and if you don't like it, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. But I watched it for the very first time, had a good feeling about it, but I was like, I'm going to actually have to get up here and talk for 30 to 45 minutes about it. So let me watch it again to see if I find anything else in it. And I was like, damn, this thing's even better. So I may watch it again this weekend. Hell, I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was a fun film. And as long as you're not expecting Lord of the Rings, I think you'll be fine.
I think so too. Yeah, it's funny. My brother-in-law, his favorite movies are the Lord of the Rings movies, and he was asking me. He was over the other day. He was like, "Oh man, what are you doing for the show this week?" I was like, "Actually, Peter Jackson." He was like, "No way." He was like, "Lord of the Rings." I was like, "No, bad taste." He was like, "What the hell is that?" And I showed him this, and he was like, "Shut up." He was like, "Peter Jackson did not make it." And then I was like, "Oh, yes, he did.
Yes,
You
he
know,
did.
it says his name."
But it's funny though, because like I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. I had to read the first two books when I was in high school. That was required reading. Had to read The Hobbit and
Damn, I'm
Fellowship of the Ring.
jealous. We had shitty
Yeah,
required reading. I wish we could have
yeah,
read two Lord of the Rings books. Shit.
yeah. So that's the only actual reading assignments I had in school, including college. That not only did I read the books, I finished the trilogy. And by
Yeah.
the time the films had come out, I had probably read the trilogy 5 or 6 times all the way through. I mean, I'm
Wow.
really, really familiar with it. I was. Um, and then I heard that, they were coming out with the films. And I mean, I was just super excited about it because, and I didn't know who Peter Jackson was. But the thing that made me excited was one of the things that he did with those films is he guaranteed before he made the first one that he would be able to make all three of them and that they would be shot simultaneously to ensure that that happens. So regardless of what they did at the box office, three films were going to be made. But you watch those films and you can see Peter Jackson in bad taste as well. I mean, you can see similarities in the way things were done because there's some pretty subtle but funny ass humor in the Lord of the Rings,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's the same style. And if you've seen, I think it was an MTV award that Andy Serkis was originally going to accept for the special effects, the Weta Studio stuff that they did with Gollum. But they made a little short that Gollum comes up and actually accepts the award and cusses everybody out. Have you seen that? It's an
No, I
extra.
haven't.
It's an extra on the Blu-ray. See if you can find an unedited version of it on YouTube. But it's one of the hidden features on the Blu-rays. You have to go into the chapter selection, and you have to one of them. If you hit like the right button, it'll show a little coin icon or something. You click on it, and it'll show it to you. But Gollum gets up there talking about what a hell it was to make this film, calls Peter Jackson a hack. It is absolutely hilarious. But you watch that, and I'm like, yeah, the same guy made Bad Taste and Brain Dead.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's the thing where a filmmaker can start, and it's almost like freshman year of high school or college. And then when you see towards the end, when they're in senior year, yeah, they're more polished. They've learned a lot of things. Maybe they have more money to work with in the filmmaker sense, but there's still that same charm and heart, and I think passion that these movies had. And I thought it was
Yeah.
funny, when we get into this movie actually opens on Skull Island, which I always thought was really, really meta, considering that after the Lord of the Rings trilogy, he made the King Kong remake in 2005.
And there's an Easter egg in King Kong as well.
Yep,
You
of the
can see
rat.
Yeah, well, you can see a crate that says Sumatran rat monkey on it
The best.
in King Kong.
It actually funny when I watched this, I was like, I actually like to revisit that King Kong film because, honest to God, I can't
It's great.
remember much. Yeah, I always remember the Jeff Bridges King Kong. That's the King Kong I
Oh
grew
yeah,
up with.
yeah.
I saw the Naomi Watts one in the theater, the Peter Jackson one in the theater, but I don't remember. I remember the sequence with the T-Rex. It was King Kong and the T-Rex battling. That shit's amazing. Like I
Oh
remember
yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, King Kong is a great film. I really like it. I mean, um, but yeah, I mean, one of the other things I was going to mention about Lord of the Rings too. Um, everybody thinks of it, as this fantasy type movie, but it's pretty violent
Yeah,
when you think
no, it
about it.
is.
I mean, they literally cut heads off of people in that film. So it's not I really wouldn't call it a children's movie, but a lot of people kind of think of it as it is. There's a lot of more adult oriented material in those films than I think a lot of people really give it credit for. So having seen the Lord of the Rings films first, well, actually, I'd seen Brain Dead before the Lord of the Rings came out. But coming back to Bad Taste, I was like, yeah, it's definitely the same guy. You can see the hints in Bad Taste that are, that he's carried out through his career. He's always had that, that real quirky um, but pretty creepy sense of humor.
Yeah, and I think that's why it works. And I think it's just really cool to see that somebody became so successful after making something like Bad Taste. Like it's really interesting
Oh
to
yeah,
see, and even Sam Raimi. You know, if you bring Evil Dead into this, which we will, I will get into Dead Alive just in a
yeah.
minute.
Made the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, he made the Spider-Man trilogy at the same time, I think around the same time that the Lord of the Rings trilogy was being made. So here
Pretty
you have these
close.
two guys that started from nothing, had nothing but creativity, and a really nice sense of humor, and of course the usage of gore in both those filmmakers' early works. And then bam, you have high budget Hollywood filmmakers turning out superhero films and fantasy films that win Best Picture. It's
Right.
just it's crazy how long that road is, but it's really interesting to kind of look back. I don't know. I personally, and both these films, I would love to see special editions. Like, I believe there's a Blu-ray of this. We were talking about it's out of print now, like
Yeah,
$250, right?
150, $200 if you can find somebody willing to sell it.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I got this. This is the Lionsgate DVD. I paid like $25 for this, which is probably a lot.
Yeah, yeah. The
Granted,
DVD goes 60 to 100. So
that's absurd. Like
crazy money.
somebody, Shout Factory, Arrow, one of you, please, please. I
For
know Peter
real.
Jackson said he wanted to do 4Ks of these, but of course we haven't heard anything. I don't know. I believe
Right.
there's an all region blue of this, but it goes for quite a bit of money too. I don't know if
Yeah.
you really need a Blu-ray of this, but I would love a special edition, just features, because this is nothing. This is literally, I'm looking here. Yeah, there's not one feature on this. I looked up
Yeah.
most of the features for this online. They made a documentary, like a making of. Put that on it, and sure, you could do it in interviews now with Peter Jackson, looking back, remembers Bad Taste. That'd be interesting for me personally. But we do have some comments here. Let's see. Peter Jackson is a great filmmaker. I still can't believe he produced District 9. I love District 9 personally. I think District 9 is one of my favorite movies. I think 2009 that came out. Probably of the 2000s, that's one of my favorite movies. I have the blue, huge fan. Neil Blomkamp's pretty underrated. I liked his two follow-up films too. I think Elysium and Chappie. Those were good movies. Love the rat Easter egg. Yeah, that's OP. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. It's nice that he stayed humble and remembered his roots for sure. Peter Jackson has a fun cameo as a Santa killer in Hot Buzz. I've never seen Hot Buzz. Have you?
I haven't either.
I now want to see that though, just for Killer Santa Peter Jackson. That's absolutely sounds incredible, man. That's really cool. But I guess we can get into film number two, and this is from 1992. This I revisited this actually last night. I didn't get a chance to watch the other night when we did our audio prep for this, but man, I had a ball rewatching this, and this is one of my favorite zombie movies of all time. I've just got to say. This is from 1992. It is Brain Dead, aka only in the United States. It is known as Dead Alive. Ooh, yeah, brother. I've got a little, I guess I can read plot synopsis on IMDb. Why not? A young man's mother is bitten by a, Sumatran rat monkey?
Sumatran is how I say it. It's from
Sumatran
Sumatra. Yeah.
Sumatran rat monkey. She gets sick, dies, at which time she comes back to life, killing and eating dogs, nurses, friends, and nearby neighbors. Oh, yes, Dead Alive. I absolutely think this is a masterpiece. And this is one of those films that comes along every 10 years or so. That just blows me away, man. And we were talking before about Sam Raimi and how Evil Dead of the 80s was one of the movies that did that. I think that really was creative and used a lot of gore and camera techniques. This is that film of the 90s. This is almost like the Evil Dead of the 90s, if you will. I just absolutely adore this film. But I was talking to AJ. I don't know if he's still here, but he told me about a really cool story about how he first saw this film. But do you remember the first time you saw Dead Alive and what were your initial thoughts?
The first time I saw it, a friend recommended it to me. Said that it would be right up my alley because it was about zombies and it was super gory. So I watched it. It was back, Netflix had it. If you had a DVD subscription, till people started renting the DVDs and keeping them and saying that they were lost. I don't think they have a copy of it anymore. But I should have burned a copy if I'd have known how hard it was to get because I
Yeah.
all the freaking time. But no, I mean, it was love at first sight. I mean, this film is hilarious and it's got more practical gore effects in it than probably any other film I have ever seen. I mean, and that's really The thing that you're going to get from it, the first time that you watch it is just how freaking gory this film is. But it's interesting too because it's not, again, it's a comedy. So they weren't, like you said earlier, they weren't actually trying to make a scary zombie film, and it was not, like Walking Dead type gore effects. It wasn't meant to shock you like that. It was to make you laugh at it. And that's the way that I took it from the very get-go. I never tried to take this film seriously. I know people that have watched it and thought it was horrible because they were expecting Dawn of the Dead. And it's like, no, that's not what this film is, man. You missed the whole freaking point. But there's an interesting note about it. This film was actually in Australia, or I guess it's Australian, that the ratings commission or whatever that they had approved this film because they funded part of it. And then when it came out, it was actually banned by the other actual ratings board or whatever. And they disbanded that board because of it. They were like, you can't reject a film that, the left hand can't reject a film that the right hand made. Yeah. So they did that. And the other thing too, the other board liked the film so much that when they got rid of the other one, they were going to slap it with a 15 rating.
I saw that.
And then thought that might set a really bad precedent, so we're going to have to give it an 18.
Goriest film of all time. Fuck it. Let the 15-year-olds in, man. Give them a vomit bag. Why don't you? I love that. That's so. I wish so many films. I wish that would have been the case. This is one of them. I wish that the same ratings board had let this movie come out uncut. But man, when you see this movie, you're like, they had a 15 rating in mind. It's crazy. But I think again, though, that all has to do with the tone of this film.
It's all the tone of the film because again, it's not meant to be sickeningly gory.
Yes,
it's meant to be funny. I mean, yeah, you're watching somebody go through a lawnmower, but it's funny.
yeah, it's not. It's funny. Like in other films, that could be so like brutal and go, oh my God, could you imagine you turning the person next to you? In this, it's just badass. Party's over, and this all of this. I was reading 5 gallons per second was being shot out of this. Absolutely goddamn crazy. But again, it's not, there's no part of you goes, oh, the horror, not at all. It's just, it's
it's like, put a few more through it. Let's see it again.
Yeah, why not? It's funny. It's almost like it came along right at the right time too, because horror, I always say this, and in the late 80s, it had almost become the equivalent of like 80s hair bands. It become sort of laughed at and stuff like that, and then this movie kind of comes out and is just so over the top and so in your face with its gore and over the top characters and plot that you're almost like, man, I know that some people will say what have you about these late 80s of cheesy horror films, but this, man, this is a return to form of all the stuff that we love whilst having the kind of same tone as those late 80s movies. And I think it's a perfect happy medium, and it's one of the best horror films of the 90s and one of the best zombie films of all time. I would say that, like, right off.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love this film. I mean, it's definitely up there in my favorites. I don't know where I'd rack and stack all the films that I've seen, but I mean, this would definitely be top 20 probably of all films. And zombie films, it'd be in the top 10.
Oh, totally. This would be my top 10 zombie films too.
Maybe top 5, because I mean, again, it's one of those films that you've got to go into it knowing that you're not going to get a serious horror film. And if you can get over that and just enjoy it for what it is so fantastic. I mean, it's got everything in it that you could possibly want. And it's just, I mean, it's got a Bruce Lee kung fu fighting scene in it.
Well, the guy's a priest.
And the guy's a priest.
He asked for the Lord.
I mean, kicks this zombie to pieces, and it's so gory. I mean, it kind of reminded me of Monty Python. He loses an arm, and it's just a flesh wound coming back at you. He finally has to kick his head off to kill it. I mean, it's just so over the top. But one of the things that I really like about it is how it starts so tame. There's
Yes.
really, and it just keeps building and building and building till the end of it is just insane. Yeah, the final scenes in this film are just nuts. But I mean, it starts out, that if you didn't know that it was going to be a horror comedy, you would, I could see somebody that didn't know anything about it turning it off because it just got so stupid. Uh,
It almost
but I
feels
mean,
like a romantic comedy when it starts, right? Like, I mean, you have the stuff on Skull Island, but then when you start and you're in the town and the tarot cards and stuff, and they kind of boy meets girl type of thing, and oh, let's go out to the zoo. It's funny that opening. I remember the first time. It's funny you said it does start so tame. Where I was watching this, I'm like, this is the goriest film of all time. Like about 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, like when are we gonna get to that? And granted, the last like 30, well, pretty much the last like I don't know hour of it is goddamn insane. But it's funny. That's funny you mentioned that because I remember the first time thinking that exact thing, being like, do I have the right movie? Did the Lionsgate
yeah,
give me the
yeah.
right?
Yeah, luckily I was informed of just enough detail before I watched it that I was just like, why did you recommend this to me? But yeah, they were like, hey, you like horror comedies, right? I think Feast is one of the best horror comedies ever made too.
I
If
love
you've ever
Feast.
seen that one, it's super gory and it's the humor in it is just hilarious to me. But I mean, a lot of that is in this film too. Um, it's just that slapstick comedy, but again, it doesn't go all out to just make it so silly that you can't take it with any shred of credence. But yeah, I mean, it's just a fantastically done film, and I don't know how many practical effects are in it, and it's not repeated stuff either. It's all fresh. I mean, just and all kinds of just insane, crazy ideas, like the zombie that gets stuck on the light bulb on the wall, and her
Yeah.
head's glowing for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, and she's still moving, and she looks like
Still moving, but her
jack o'
head's
lantern.
glowing because she's got a light bulb in her skull. I mean, just little stuff like that. I mean, when was the last time you saw somebody pick up a lawnmower and just chew through people with it? I mean, it's just insane. And then the nurse, she's one of the first victims, and she's not decapitated. It's just her head's hanging by the back tendons of her
Yep.
neck, and her head keeps falling over her shoulders, and they have to keep putting it up. It's just like,
And the gore they use, the mother, basically what happens is the mother gets bit, and
mhm.
of course by the rat monkey, and she's turning, and there's a really funny pudding scene, I believe it is, and these two people, these over the top, they're talking, and it's so gross because she's like literally her face is falling off, her ear falls in the pudding, her arm is like has all this pus, she's like, oh, her pus shoots into this guy's eating oh, this is
Just
my
eating it. This is
pudding.
like,
And she goes out, she dies. The nurse is like, I'm really sorry, she's died. They do this effect where the fingers are in this woman's cheek and she's screaming. Looks incredible. And then, bam, like you said, the neck pop off. Just all this great gore just spurts out all over the place. And I'm just like, holy shit. I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, the gloves just came off. I did not see this going there that quickly. I mean, in a
yeah,
snap.
and then it gets worse.
Oh yeah, it only gets worse from there. And like that's you have these kung fu fighting priests. You have the finale, which is just absolutely incredible. And like you were saying, all the creativity with all this stuff. It's not just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. There's one guy that they saw off his legs, and it's just literally just bone left, and it's just half of his carcass crawling to the guy.
And
Unbelievable. You
then
have one. Yeah, go ahead.
you got the zombified intestines.
Yes. The organs come back to life.
Yeah, the organs come back to life. They're crawling all over, and they're out to kill somebody. They're
Yeah.
not just running around. I mean, they're having because apparently the organs are a deadly threat. They have to get away from them. I mean, it's just so. Again, it's just one of those things. It's just stupid enough that you think it's funny, but it's not so stupid because it's so well done that you just write it off as just I can't watch this. I mean, it's just again, it's just crazy. And then the dialogue that's in it is hilarious.
So
I
much
mean,
fun. The
you
dialogue's
know,
incredible in this. I thought it was interesting that they did the whole like the mother that wanted, her son not to be taken away. And they throw in this really kind of, I thought, batshit crazy thing where it was kind of serious, where you learn that his father drowned trying to save him. And then that's not exactly what happens by the end of the film. They tell
Yeah.
you that. I thought that was really deep for a movie like this.
Well, that's the thing. It's like the actual storyline in it is a lot more complex than you would ever think would be in a film like this. Because, like you said, it starts out as like a romantic thing. Is it Lionel and Paquita?
Yes.
They got this little thing going, and it goes on throughout the whole movie. She dumps him for whatever reason, and the milkman comes in, or whatever he is, and you got that little love triangle going on, and then everything comes back together at the end, and then you've got the domineering mother, that angle, and she's basically lied to her son all of his life, and he finds out at the end what happened, and then he's all pissed off at her. So I mean, it's just got so much in it that it's like, I just didn't expect to see that, in a film of this type, that it actually has more than one level to it.
Yeah.
And it's actually got 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's usually movies like this are all one note like that, and then this movie comes along, and then I really like that arcing angle at the end where it really sets up where this mother becomes this giant monster thing. He's like, "You lied to me." It becomes personal out of nowhere.
Yes.
It feels like this whole disaster movie the entire time. At the end, it's now this is personal warfare now, and I thought that was so clever to throw that in.
And then on top of all that, you throw in the creepy uncle.
That fucking guy. Holy shit. I don't know what you've got listening in there, mate. I don't know what you're getting off on, but I'll let you know that I'm sitting there cracking up, this fat, crazy uncle. I'm going to take over the estate and throw a party. Well, rest in pepperonis to all the people that showed up to the party. I don't know if anyone has ever, or if you found this when doing research, I don't know what the body count in this film would be, but I would have to think it's towards the top of, like, it has to be close to 100 motherfuckers.
It's got to be. It's more than a John Wick film.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a high body count. No, there has to be 40 or 50 in the final scene alone.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, 70 of them go through the lawnmower. I mean, people just come out of the woodwork in this house. I mean, I don't know how they got them all in the house to begin with, but it's hilarious. But again, it starts out real subtle. I mean, they kill the first guy that gets bit, and that's kind of like your opening scene. The other thing that's awesome to it, I just wish it could have been in the film a little bit longer, was the rat monkey itself.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, that is some awesome.
How did they do that? Was it claymation, stop motion?
Yeah, it had to be, because it moves. It's real jerky the way that it moves. So I'm sure it was stop motion. I don't know if it was claymation or not. If it was, they did a really good job, because it didn't really look. I mean, it didn't look like the stuff that was in Evil Dead. But yeah, I mean, it was just that. And if you ever see, go out on the internet and see still photos of it, it's a freaky looking little thing. I mean, it's scary. But yeah, when his mom steps on it.
Yeah, it's all like, oh man, all that gore comes out. I thought another thing.
Got a guy sitting there taking pictures of it.
Yeah, I thought the baby was an interesting thing, and apparently what happened was they had finished filming, and they still had money to burn. I think they still had money in the budget to burn, and Peter Jackson was like, all right, how do I make this work? And what he did was he took the baby angle, and they went out to the park and filmed for 2 days. And there's just crazy shit with this baby where he's in the carriage with it, and he sees how these other people are playing with their babies, and he's like, come on, play with the little thing. He's got barbed wire and then the baby gets out, and he's running around the park punching the baby, banging the baby, and I'm just like, oh my God. And there's just a random homeless guy in the back going, yeah.
Yeah, and the 2 ladies sitting on the bench are like, oh my. Yeah. Don't do anything to stop him. He's sitting there punching this baby in the face, and they're just like, well, that's not how you should act.
Be like, I'm just here sipping my tea anyway, like I'm like, what the fuck? Like
Yeah,
nobody would step out and do anything. But I guess that's the beauty of Peter Jackson does, creating this world. Like no one is going to step in. And this any character in this film, no, they're not. You have kung fu fighting priests. You have hobos that cheer on bad fathers, and
yeah.
you just have crazy wacky uncles. This movie, the universe, wherever this movie takes place, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is crazy. But yeah, the tie into it to Skull Island, I think, is awesome. And then again, he referenced this film in King Kong too. So I mean, it's got little subtle things in it. Again, just the dialogue is just so good. But I mean, the dialogue in Bad Taste was good too. I
Totally.
mean, just so many things in it. The what did I read? It's either the Spanish or the Italian translation of what they call dead alive or brain dead in either Spain or Italy. Translates to your mom ate my dog.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Mom ate my dog. Well, you know
which
what?
is a line in the film. She
Yeah, it
eats
does
it.
happen.
Yeah,
Not
your
all of
mom
it.
ate my dog. Well, not all of it.
Not all of it. Why you gotta
Not
be so
all of it.
dramatic?
Come on, she's not that bad.
Why so dramatic, Paquita?
Yeah, yeah. Well, she would have if you hadn't pulled the tail out of her mouth.
The best, man. We got a bunch of comments. Over the top fun gore. I kick arse for the Lord. Dude, that's probably my favorite line in this movie. Like every single time I watch it, I think it's funny. I love Feast. Don't hate the Feast sequels. Very nice. King Nee Gore's in the house. What's going on, my friend? How are you? Let's see. I've been here the whole time, just busy. Yeah, no, that's basically my life too. That homeless guy, dude. Yeah, the homeless guy is classic. Hey, Corey John, Mr. Pink is in the house. What's going on, Mr. Pink, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Blue? Best zombie baby in cinema. Yeah, I absolutely better than the Dawn of the Dead remake, baby. I'll say that. That baby's gonna have me in tears. Hyperactive. Yeah, no, I think that's just so wild too that Peter Jackson was like, what can I do to just add a little bit more to this? Screw it, I'll take the remainder of the budget, go out to the park for a few days, film some stupid shit, and it's one of the funniest scenes. I believe Peter Jackson himself has gone on to say that's his favorite scene he shot in this movie, was because it just was so guerrilla. It was so, let's run out there and do this for 2 days. And it really, I don't know, it's a very funny sequence. This entire film is
Oh,
just
it's just
a blast. It never really loses its great pacing, and I don't know, man. I adore this movie. Every time I watch it, I find a reason to smile. It's a great flick.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just, and like I said, it's a thousand things. I mean, it's got some, some big, the gore and stuff like that. Those are the things that people really talk about. But I mean, this would be one of those films that you could do a watch along and just talk about it the entire time. There's always something to be pointing out about this movie. Because again, the creativity that's in it. I mean, there's a ton of gore, but I mean, it's not just, heads being chopped off, people getting shot in the head. I mean, people getting their intestines ripped out. It's all these little imaginative ways, like the thing they did with the intestines, making it come to life, the baby, just, I mean, the whole 9 yards. I mean, there's just so much in this film, and it's what, 90 minutes long? A little
Yeah,
longer than that?
I think 97 minutes, and it doesn't feel. It's just such a quick flick. You're like, that's it. It's over. Wow, like fucking a. I think what this film does too, that I think the greatest zombie movies do. If I had to make a list of my greatest zombie movies, and I could only use one Romero film, it would be Dawn, it would be Return of the Living Dead, and it would probably be this movie. And I think that those three movies all have one thing in common, and it's like you said, they're also grand. Like, yes, they have all the essentials, the gore, the great characters, good story, but they also have wonderful senses of humor. They also have all this creativity. They're just so grand. There's so much to like about each one of those films that's what really puts them over the top for me, I think, as great zombie films. I think that's why I've always said Dawn of the Dead's my favorite movie. It's just so grand. There's so much you can throw a rock and find something you like when it comes to Dawn of the Dead. Personally, that's, I think, really cool. IWK83 is here. What's going on, good brother? The gore and comedy is on point. I really appreciated the uncle character. The way he's written is wild. Such a piece of shit, larger than life character. Yeah, no, it's it's absolutely
And hard to
insane.
kill.
Hard to
The,
kill.
the uncle was hard to kill.
Yeah, and I thought that was funny how they prolonged his whole death. You know, like
Yeah.
he's fighting the meat cleavers and whatnot, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I read in the trivia he got kicked in the nuts 5 times before they were able to kill him.
the bigger they are.
That's right.
Amazing stuff, though. I loved that uncle. What was that actor's name? I gotta get his name up here. I don't know. Ian Watkin was his name. I don't know if he did much else. Let me see.
I don't recognize him, but let's see.
He's since passed away, which is a shame. He was in Charlotte's Web. That was the last thing he ever was in.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was
But
in
he
Attack
did
of
a
the
great
Clones.
job in this. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't see anything that stands out as a role that I would recognize. But
Yeah, no, a lot of other than this, which I thought he just nailed the comedy in this, man. And I don't know, like, but coming full circle with this, what do you think about? Because it's amazing that I think I love these two movies, and probably being a horror fan that I am, these are probably the Peter Jackson movies I watch the most. I mean, granted, I think the Lord of the Rings films are fantastic. I think The Frighteners is a really good movie. I don't know if you ever
yeah,
seen that one.
I've seen it once or twice. Is Michael J. Fox in that one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. I like that. Some of the CG in that movie's not the greatest.
I was going to say that one has a lot of CG in it, and it's kind of cartoonish now.
Yes, definitely. Any late '90s movie from that time, like Event Horizon, some of the even Stenhall Syndrome, some of the CGI in those movies, you're just like, what in the hell? It did not age well. But no, yeah, I think when I think about Peter Jackson, it's interesting that he started from this and then moved on to what he moved on into, and I think that it's nice that we could still look back and appreciate what he did and see to this day a little bit of what he used to be all about. I don't know. I love going back and like looking at stuff like this, because in
Oh,
all
absolutely.
honesty, there's a lot of filmmakers that didn't have this, right? Like Craven always wanted to make more serious or bigger budgeted films that weren't horror. Never really got to do that much other than the one like Meryl Streep movie. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Music of
yeah.
the Heart.
He did some made for TV stuff, but I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah, Chiller, a lot of bad stuff like that. I think it's interesting that Raimi and Jackson got to move on, whereas there's a lot of these guys like Carpenter, Romero, Craven that maybe wanted to but never really did.
Yeah, at least in Carpenter's case, he did make some non-horror films that have a reputation now. But I mean, he didn't do anything, on the scale of, a superhero movie or anything like that. Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, it's not a horror film, but a lot of people love it. But I mean, it's still not that same level that that Peter Jackson and Sam Raimi went on to do. But at the same time, to me, it's really not that surprising because I mean, you look at how many famous actors or actresses now that got their start in horror. We were talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. I mean, they're two of the biggest Hollywood A-list stars, for a while anyway. That was their first movie, if I remember right. I don't think they were in anything after that. Jamie Lee Curtis obviously went on to have a career outside of horror. So, a lot of actors and actresses get their start in horror. So I mean, it doesn't really surprise me that there are at least a handful of directors that's where they came from. Just comes back to just how important I think horror is. I mean, it's popular, and the thing is, I think there's a lot more people that watch horror than let on to it. It's kind of a guilty pleasure for a lot of people as well. Because I still get some strange looks sometimes when somebody asks me what my favorite movie is, and knowing me like at work or something like that, and I say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they're like, I wouldn't even thought you'd ever watch that movie, and I was like, yeah, like 2 times a year since I was 12.
I get the same stuff, so we're definitely in the same boat, dude.
But yeah, I think horror is definitely important because I mean a lot of people get their start from there, and yeah, and it keeps me coming back. I mean, they're definitely my favorite movies. I don't know that I have a non-horror movie that I would put above the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh,
Just of all the
it's
movies
funny.
I've seen.
When I say Dawn of the Dead's my favorite horror movie of all time, people just are like, "Oh, so what's your favorite movie?" I'm like, "No, that's my favorite movie." Like, and they'll just look at you like, better than Goodfellas, better than The Godfather, better than Forrest Gump, better than Pulp Fiction, and they'll go down the line. I'm like, yeah, honestly, yeah, and honestly, Texas Chainsaw will be my number two. That's my two
Mhm.
favorite horror movies. Those two and The Shining. That's my top three. If my favorite non-horror film would probably be Clockwork Orange, even though it is a crazy movie. Like it's not. I know it's not a horror film, but I know that people would be like, well, it's fucking might as well.
It's horrific. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a
Yeah.
horrific movie, but it's not a horror film. It's you just kind of have to watch it, and if you yeah, if you're easily offended by certain things, you don't need to watch it at all.
No.
Um,
No.
but Kubrick did a lot of stuff like that. I mean,
Lolita, Space Odyssey. I mean, yeah, he was all about controversy. I think that's why I love Stanley Kubrick, and like the reason why I always want to go back to his films. I'm like, oh man, like what was he trying to say here? And I always think that's like really interesting to kind of like dive into and stuff like that. But if you had to give, hop back into this, Dead Alive a rating, what would you give it?
it's a 10 for me.
I would agree. I think it's a 10 out of 10. I think it's one of the best zombie movies of all time and a masterpiece. Shout Factory, Arrow, any of you companies out there. Peter Jackson, I heard that you wanted to do 4K special editions. I don't know.
Somebody,
That was 3 years
Blue
ago.
Underground, I don't care. Just somebody release it for less than $200 because
Yes,
I'd like to
please.
own a
And
copy of it.
put features on it. And would it kill you? I mean, this is some of the worst cover I've ever seen for this disc. That's it. It looks
Somebody
like
print
somebody
that
made
out on
this
their
in
computer.
Microsoft Word and just fucking pasted it on a disc.
At least you have a copy of it so you can watch it. But yeah, like I said, I had to hunt this one down on the internet. So yeah, it's hard to get a hold of if you don't know where to look because I don't think you can stream it anywhere, even buy it. I don't think you can get it on Vudu or Amazon or anything like that for streaming.
I
So
wonder why. I don't know if is it a rights?
it has to be, but I mean I don't know why. Because that was my first thought was so that I can watch it again and have it refreshed in my memory to do this show. I don't think it was a buying option for me when I tried to find it on Prime, but I could be wrong.
Isn't that
I'll go.
wild?
I'll go back and check because I'll buy it.
Oh, sure, I would too.
Yeah.
It's funny that like a movie that nobody really talks about. This you can get this DVD really dirt cheap. But one of the top greatest zombie movies of all time. Nah,
Nah,
not available to watch fucking anywhere. Like
it's got to be a conspiracy to make the Blu-ray so expensive for the people that own it, I guess, so they can get a good resale value out of it. I don't know, but yeah, Bad Taste is free on Tubi, so
and Prime. I think it's on Prime too.
Yeah, I watched it off of Prime, but I did look it up on Tubi and it was there. I didn't click play to see if it was working or not, but yeah, since it was on Prime, I could watch it without commercials, so that's what I chose to do. But yeah, the Blu-ray and the DVD is super cheap for it. So
Can't beat that. Can't beat it, man. Aiden agrees with us. 10 out of 10. Long live Dead Alive. I completely agree with you, brother. I'm a huge fan. I had an absolute ball watching it last night. I was just sitting here and it's one of those movies that it always brings a smile on my face, and that's what any great zombie movie should do.
absolutely.
But yeah, so this was I had a really nice stroll down memory lane of these two with you, man. Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss on the show while I have you on?
I don't know if there was anything else that I wanted to point out that we didn't kind of get into.
Anything on your channel like coming up after Masters of Horror that you'd want to promote?
Yeah, sure. I think I mentioned it earlier. I was going back and starting to watch some for the first time and rewatch others. A lot of Gialli. So Argento and Bava and Fulci and I've already reviewed a couple of Sergio Martino films. They're up now, but I've got a few more. Actually, I got them right here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this one is coming up.
Oh, Shameless. Four
Yep.
Flies on Gray Velvet.
And
Oh man, I've been meaning to get that. Arrow does such great jobs with their transfers, man.
yep. And you've already covered this one, but
Ooh, phenomenal.
yep. And this is one I've never seen it before, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. This is a Sergio Martino film.
I don't know if you're friends with Darren Burrows on Facebook. He just reviewed that last night. That's so crazy to show that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said
And
it was like his third favorite Martino film, and I'm a huge
yeah,
Sergio Martino guy.
yeah.
Oh, very cool.
So got a few of them on the playlist here. So those will be coming up as soon as I get a chance to watch them. Like I said, I'm going to finish that one last Masters of Horror episode, Dream Cruise, and then I'll do another video to rank them 1 to 26. So
Dude, I'm looking forward to that because I made a list a year or so ago. I'd love to revisit that list, and that's a show I always want to watch. Aiden actually has a question for you. Do you wish George Romero would have done a Masters of Horror episode?
yes,
Me too.
I mean, considering some of the entries in that series, I don't think he could have done any worse. But yeah, absolutely, it would be interesting to see what he would have done. Would he have, done something that he was famous for and make a zombie episode? Obviously, it would be better than Homecoming. But
Well,
no, it would be interesting to see what he did because Argento did two, and his were pretty interesting
mhm.
as far as what they were actually about, Peltz and Jennifer. So you take a big name director like Romero, and I'd just be interested to see what the concept behind it would be.
Yeah.
I really don't know what he would do. Just to see what he would have done would have been fantastic. I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
there's
think it's
probably a
funny you
few other.
mentioned the Homecoming. Joe Dante, I thought both his episodes were really poor, like really poor.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people seem to shit on the Toby Hooper ones. I, for some reason, upon rewatching Dance of the Dead, I don't hate that one like most people do. The damn thing I don't like.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Um, yeah, Dance of the Dead. I think it's going to end up in the middle somewhere for me.
Me too. I mean,
Maybe
you're
a
right.
little below the middle, maybe. But yeah, Joe Dante. What was the other one he did? Was that the
The Screwfly Solution, which I
yeah,
hate.
the Screwfly Solution? Which that one had a good concept. I just think they botched the execution of it.
Yeah, I thought he was like the master, if you will, that disappointed the most in that show. Like both his episodes I thought sucked. Also about Romero, I believe he wrote the screenplay for Hakel's Tale, and it was based on a Clive Barker story, I believe.
Now that you say that, which I think I told you earlier when we were talking that I can't remember a lot of things off the top of my head, but you mentioned something and it comes back. He did, and he was actually supposed to direct it,
Yes.
but it did not work out due to scheduling or something like that. But yeah, Hakel's Tale, I am pretty sure was a Clive Barker short story.
Yeah, and then he adapted it to a screenplay and was filming Land of the Dead, and that's why he couldn't direct the episode. And I
Yeah,
believe they got John McNaughton, who had done like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer.
that sounds right. I know McNaughton did one, and I think that is his. So yeah, I guess that answers the question. What would Romero do? And it's not really a zombie film. It is.
No,
It's
necromancy, if you will.
yeah. It's definitely in the realm of the occult. So yeah, it's an erotic occult type film. So or
Little
episode.
Barker Romero. I
Yeah.
love it.
So
AJ Zitro, what is Neon Black's earliest childhood horror memory? I know we got into some of these earlier. I don't know if AJ was in the house when you got into those, but do you have any other fun early childhood memories? Like maybe the first time you saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
The first time I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I was in my teens. I don't remember how old I was. I'm pretty sure I drove to the video store to get it, though. So at least 16. As far as the earliest ones, what I said earlier, what kind of got me into horror was watching syndicated reruns of Twilight Zone and Night Gallery. And now that I think about it, this was a little after that, but HBO used to have a series called The Hitchhiker.
Oh, from the 80s, right?
Yeah, it was early to. I think it ran for most of the 80s. I can't remember exactly how many episodes there were, and a lot of those didn't fall fully into horror, but they were kind of Twilight Zone type stories. Something bad happened to somebody. Sometimes they would be supernatural. Sometimes it would be just kind of scary. But I do remember watching those. But yeah, so I guess I was probably 8 to 10 years old when I first started watching some of the lighter stuff. I mean, my parents wouldn't let me just watch anything. But it was kind of funny that once VHS came out and everybody had a VCR, they quit kind of paying attention to what we would go get from the store. But most of the time, I'd watch them over at a friend's house, or I wouldn't let them know that I went, because I had a VCR. I used to cut grass and stuff for a living, or not a living, but for spending money when I was a kid. So I saved up money and bought a VCR and hooked it up in my room so that I could watch whatever I wanted to, without having mom and dad sitting there with me. But yeah, I remember. Yeah. I remember having a conversation with one of my friend's moms. I was spending the weekend with him, and we were going to rent some movies, and she went with us. And we picked out Halloween 2 and City of the Living Dead.
Wow.
The City of the Living Dead was cover alone. It's like, this has got to be a good movie. So we're going to sit down and watch it. And his mom was like, I don't think y'all need to be watching that. And I was like, well, they wouldn't let us rent it if we couldn't see it. And she was like, okay, typical 80s mom, right? It's like, okay.
Drill sequence on.
Yeah, that was that freaked me out when I was that age. City of the Living Dead, the puke scene. It's just like, God, she's puking forever. But I didn't appreciate it as much then as I do now. That's for sure. But yeah, Fulci did some really good films. But yeah, those are probably my earliest one. Was just basically the syndicated stuff. There may have been a few others, but I can't think of it right now. It's been so long. Do you have a favorite
Twilight Zone that stands out? That's like my favorite show ever.
I don't remember if it was a Twilight Zone or not. It was in black and white, I'm sure. But the one that stands out to me is it was one of those kind of like Monster Under the Bed episodes where the parents didn't believe. And at the end, they're standing, I guess, in the bedroom, and there's 2 windows, and like these arms come through the windows and twist their heads and snap their necks. I think that was a Twilight. Huh?
I believe that's the dark side.
It may be. It may be. That's as far as those syndicated ones, that's the one that stands out to me the most. There was another one too. And again, I don't remember which series it was because I haven't watched any of those really since then, to be honest with you. There was another one where the idea behind it was that they figured out how to get the 9 lives out of a cat. And it was like a Houdini type guy that he would do these acts and kill himself because he knew he would come back. He was getting the lives of the cat. And at the very end, they bury him. And he's sitting there in the coffin, waiting till, time enough has passed that he can come back out. And he starts reliving all the ones that he's done. And then he realizes at the end, well, it's not 9 lives for me because the cat died. So there's only 8. And he'd already used them all. So he knew he was going to die. So he buried himself alive.
I have no idea what that's from, but I want
that may have been a Hitchhiker or a Tales from the Crypt.
That's incredible. If you find out whatever that's called, please let me know because that sounds amazing. I've never.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, it was one of those. I mean, it was really probably the concept more than anything else, because I don't think any of these were like really scary or anything like that. But I mean, that concept just always stuck with me, because I've heard people on TV or whatever talk about, well, I wish I had the 9 lives of a cat, and I was like, always remember the cat dies once. So,
It teaches you a valuable lesson.
life lesson right there. It's like you can't go in the ocean without thinking about Jaws. I mean, it's just
Oh
one of those
shit.
things.
Yeah, no, Jaws ruined me on sharks. And Twilight Zone, I don't know if you ever saw the one with Telly Savalas where he buys this doll for his daughter. It's called Talkie Tina. And like basically halfway through the episode, the doll starts like threatening him. She's like, I'm gonna kill you, and he's like, yeah, right. And basically towards the end, the doll does kill him. And I remember as a
Oh
kid
wow.
being like, holy shit. And it was apparently where the inspiration for Chucky came from. So I thought that was
Oh
really
okay.
cool.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that one. I remember Telly Savalas though, because he was bald.
Yeah,
Um,
Telly's great, man.
yeah,
Kojak.
yeah. Kojak. I used to watch that a long
Kojak's
time
a great
ago,
show.
back in the day.
Yeah, may he rest in peace. Aiden said he loved the Argento episodes and the Carpenter episodes. It's fun. Pro Life's a better remake of Assault on Precinct 13, probably, because I don't really like the actual remake of Assault on. I love the original, but that's what it is. But all right, man. Dude, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Oh no, had a great time.
I did too. It is fun. I love live
It
streaming.
is.
It's
It
just
is. Yeah. Anytime, just let me know. As long as we can get the schedules worked out, I'm happy to do it.
yeah, definitely, man. It was so weird doing this on a Friday, but I actually really like it because now I can sleep tomorrow. Like I don't have to get up for work. It's weird. The Thursday night, I'm like, oh man, graveyard. I do it, and then I'm like, shit, I got to work tomorrow. Not
Yeah.
tonight.
Not tonight.
No.
Stay up as late as you want.
Nice, beautiful Saturday morning tomorrow. I can't wait. But yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. I'm thinking one day down the road, I want to do like a horror roundtable, have a bunch of people on. I
Hey,
think
that'd be awesome.
I don't know how many you can have on StreamYard, but I'd
I
love to
think
do
when I signed in, it said 10.
10. Holy shit. I don't know about that, but definitely 5 or 6. I'd love to do a big roundtable with like everybody and like just really just talk about anything under the sun. I think that'd be a great time. But yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. I'll be sure to leave the link to your channel in the description of this video. Everybody else, thank you so much for watching. There was a ton of you guys. I appreciate all the comments, kind words. Long live Mr. Peter Jackson. That's A Still Alive. Can't recommend them enough, and it was fun revisiting them down memory lane. I'll be back next week. The plan is Wrong Turn retrospective, just because the new one's coming out. So don't hold your breaths. If it's not next week, it'll be the week after. But that is going to be all for now. So everybody have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay beautiful, stay golden, Pony Boy. We will catch you next time only on the Great.